HighBridge, a division of Recorded Books, presents The Hostage by A.F. Carter. Read by Amy Mcfadden. Chapter 1. Elizabeth. I'm 15 years old, being kidnapped, and I know how this usually ends. But I don't do fear. A failing, according to Father, one of many. I'm lying on some cushions, the cushions on a rug that covers the floor of the trunk. It's pitch black, except for an occasional red glow when my abductor hits the brakes. There must be taillights, though, because it's after 3 o'clock in the morning. Or maybe not. It was after 3 o'clock when I was taken, but I can't know how long I've been unconscious. I hate that. I hate not being in control. Like right this minute, when I throw up again. Ordinarily, I'm polite, if somewhat cold, and noticeably fastidious. Prissy, according to Father. Now, I clean my mouth on a corner of the mattress. I'm not about to use my blouse, the only alternative. The car hits a bump, and I slide into the back of the trunk. But first, luckily, because what I hit doesn't give. At all. The pain draws me fully awake, and I arrive at a firm resolution, because it's the only one out there. I'm the captain of this ship. I tell myself. It's up to me to keep it afloat. I will not succumb to my captors or despair. As I've already said, I know how this usually ends. Am I being overly dramatic? Well, that's me, Elizabeth Bradford. That's who I am. Arrogant, too, a product of nature and nurture both. Even my friends dislike me, which doesn't make sense, but there it is. I don't have to ask myself why I've been abducted. My parents and I have only just moved to Baxter, and if we're not the super-rich Bradfords, we're surely the very rich. Father's brother, Henry, is majority shareholder of the Bradford Group. Henry is currently occupied with a half-built pipeline under review by the Department of Transportation. That's why he dispatched Father to bid on the construction of a Nissan factory scheduled to break ground in 6 months, on the factory and the demolition of the abandoned homes and factories now on the property. Mom insists that luck plays a major part in life, that each life is filled with unforeseen events that shape its course. I think she means to chide me about my need for control, to humble me, but I've mostly ignored her. Not anymore. Not with me riding in the trunk of a car, bouncing from side to side, helpless, my fate almost entirely in the hands of my kidnappers and my parents. It's going to cost the family a pretty penny to get me back, assuming they do get me back. It's quite possible, perhaps even likely, that Father and Mom will spend the next 10 years in a fruitless search for my body after paying the ransom. That's why, of course, I can't remain passive, an obedient victim living on hope. I begin a search of the trunk, looking not only for a weapon, but for anything that might help me to escape, groping in complete darkness. I can't even see my hand as I slide it over the flat cushions beneath me. I'm hoping for a spring, a stiff wire that might be used as a weapon, but the cushions are all foam. Still, my search reveals a loose seam on one side of the largest cushion, a seam that comes away in a long strip that I stuff into my jacket's inner pocket. Maybe I can use it to strangle my kidnapper, like in all those gangster movies. I'm not strong or courageous enough to pull that off, but ripping the fabric away from the cushion seems like a victory. Small, bordering on insignificant, but a victory nonetheless. For just a moment, I stop to listen as a car passes from the opposite direction, the first one I've noticed. So, we're not on an interstate or any well-traveled road. Farm country? When Father announced that we were Baxter-bound and that we'd be living in this black hole of a city for 6 months at the least, I checked out the region on Google Maps and discovered the city was surrounded by farms. Wheat, corn, soybeans, pigs, and cattle. I wonder, for only a moment, Will they put me in with the pigs? I'm getting banged around, but I continue my search, discovering that I can extend my hand a good foot beneath the partition separating the trunk and the car's interior. Again, as when I explored the mattress, I imagine finding a weapon beneath the seat, a loaded gun. Stupid, of course, and not just because it's so unlikely. I've never fired a gun, and I'm as likely to shoot myself as my kidnapper. In any event, I discover only a handful of lint. I continue to search, doggedly. I'm nothing if not stubborn, and I pride myself on being thorough, on completing whatever task I've set for myself. I'm not expecting success. Surely my abductor thoroughly examined what amounts to a prison cell. But then my hand touches a length of banded electrical wires that spring from a gap in the side panel. I'm confused for a short moment until I finally grasp the obvious. The set of thin wires I hold must power a taillight. There's no other possibility. My first impulse is to just yank on the wiring and let the chips fall where they may. Then I flash on a trunk filled with live wires, sparks flying in every direction. Well, that would frustrate my kidnapper, me electrocuted on the floor of the trunk. Father would never pay a ransom without being sure I was alive. I recall a demand issued last week by an acquaintance. Shit or get off the pot. I don't care for profanity, not usually, but the words strike home as I hold onto the wire like it's the only thing keeping my head above water. Focus. I tap my forehead. You didn't skip 2 grades because you're a dummy. And you're not a 15-year-old senior at Phillips Exeter because you can't analyze. So, what will it be? Stay where you are, do nothing, let your future take care of itself, assuming you have one? Or rip the wires out and hope the short circuit brings the car to a stop without electrocuting you in the process? I close my eyes, breathing now in short, sharp bursts as I pronounce myself unafraid. But my hands won't stop shaking, and I can't make them move. Then something inside gives way, and I yank as hard as I can, falling back onto my head as the entire light pulls free, and I find myself staring at a small light bulb dangling from the end of the wire. A lit bulb. I'm dazzled, initially, and I can't stop myself from gazing at the light, though it leaves me as blind as I was in the darkness. I'm feeling like I was present at the moment when God said, "Let there be light." The notion is pleasing, even grand. But then a stray thought banishes this pitiful reverie. Hey, fool, it's the light going out that should worry you, like the one that keeps your heart beating, your lungs filled, your body working. I have a little ghoul of a brother named Sherman who revels in the goriest crime videos he can locate online. Kill the head, he told me over lunch one Saturday, and the body dies. He'd snapped his fingers. Just like that. The brain stops and the body stops with it. That's why snipers and assassins try for headshots. I turn away for a moment until my pupils adjust, then begin a second systematic search, this one illuminated. It doesn't take very long until I find what I should have been searching for all along. Right where I should have been looking for it. A yellow plastic handle extends from the trunk latch. I don't have to guess what it's for, because its purpose is cut into the plastic. Trunk release. For a time, eyes closed, I listen to the hiss of the tires, much louder inside the trunk than inside a car. They sound like the band saws on a construction site Father demanded I visit. Father's hoping I'll eventually replace my childless uncle, that I'll become the overseer, guardian of the family's interests. Lord knows he can't rely on my psycho brother. I don't pop the trunk and jump out, my first impulse. I'm not that desperate. Not yet. Even supposing I don't break my neck when I hit the roadway, my kidnappers are sure to see the trunk fly open, as I am sure to be in no condition to outrun them. I'm interrupted by a vehicle passing from the opposite direction. It doesn't appear to slow, and yet there's something happening because I hear voices from inside the car for the first time. A woman's voice, accented, then a man's. "Please to stay cool, Quentin. Nothing to fear. Remember what we have said." "I hear you, okay?" "I hear you also. I hear panic. We are two weary travelers. Remember the story. Live it." I see flashes of color, blue and red, through the open hole behind the dark taillight, and I hear a single elongated whoop, followed by silence as my abductor's car first slows, then stops. Outside, the wheels of what must be a police car grind against the pavement before coming to a halt behind us. Then a door opens, and footsteps approach. Finally, a stern voice. The voice of authority. "Good evening, sir. May I please see your license and registration?" "They're in my wallet." "Get them." I seize the handle, cradling the base against my palm, curling my fingers around the inner edge, the cable tucked between my fore and middle fingers. I'm rehearsing my exit, imagining the trunk popping up, me leaping to the pavement, me running away as fast as I can while the cop deals with my kidnappers. I assume they're armed because I don't recall what happened to Chip, the boy I was making out with before I was taken. But I can't imagine football hero Chip being cowed by anything less than a gun. Myself, I remember only a cloth slapped against my face from behind and an odor that still has me nauseated. "Have you been drinking tonight, sir?" "No, officer." "Nothing?" "Nothing." "Where are you coming from at 4:20 in the morning?" The response seems a bit too fast, even to me. "From my mom's. She's been sick, so me and my fiancé were looking after her until my sister came by. We're on our way home." I hear footsteps on the pavement, coming toward the back, then a pause. I'm telling myself to go now, but I can't seem to move, like when I first held the taillight wires. I tell myself to pull, 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 but it feels like I'm trying to move an immovable weight. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to step out of the car. But please step out, sir." Doors open on either side of the car, the little pop of the releasing locks releasing me as well. I imagine the trunk lid popping up, vaulting over the lip at the back, landing on my feet, running. But it doesn't happen that way. Not even close. The trunk does open, but I jump too soon, cracking my head against the opening lid, rolling forward to hit the pavement shoulder first. Then the gunfire. 2 shots so loud they might be lightning strikes. I failed. I know I've failed, and I don't want to open my eyes, not ever again. But I can't stop myself. My eyelids separate by themselves, and I'm looking into a pair of empty blue eyes a foot away. Dead eyes. Cop eyes. The blood oozing from a deep wound on the side of his neck reaches out for me. His spirit is already gone. Though I can't see her, the woman's voice, as cold as it is confident, echoes in my brain. "Do not hurt the girl, Quentin. We need her whole." Chapter 2. Elizabeth. A bucket. A fucking bucket. I'm not given to epithets. Too easy, too familiar, too Generation Z. That's Z, right? For Z, the last letter in the alphabet, evolution stops here. So I try to avoid the conventions of my peers, the prep school obligations that demand we mimic a class of people we'll never know. But a fucking bucket? I expected to be beaten, at the least, when we finally came to a stop somewhere between 30 minutes and an hour later. And I'd deserve it, too. I didn't kill that cop, didn't pull the trigger. But his face, the empty eyes, the narrow gray mustache, the slack jaw. I couldn't escape that face, didn't want to. Not until the car rolled to a stop, until the light in the trunk went out, until the trunk popped open, and I found myself staring up at a woman. Not old, not even middle-aged. Her eyes were dark as her hair, and without emotion. They inspected me as you'd inspect a recent purchase that had just been delivered. Is this what I ordered? A much younger man stood behind her, tall, blond, and heavily built. His blue eyes betrayed shock and a measure of fear, the look of a boy in over his head. He wasn't in charge, and he didn't fire the gun that killed the cop. I made the judgment instantly and without effort, a survival instinct finally emerging. But I couldn't make myself believe that my kidnappers would show mercy, that killing didn't come naturally to them. "Please get out." Her tone was suitably controlled, her words heavily accented, her expression unchanged. I took the hand she offered, as frightened as I was defiant only a short time before. Just as well, because my legs refused to hold me when I stepped out, and I sank to my knees. "Up." Her tone was peremptory, do it or else, and I did it, staggering for a moment before I caught my balance. I expected to find blood when I brought my hand to my scalp, but found only a lump too sore to be touched. "If you will do as I say, you will soon go home. If you do not, we will hurt you in ways your family cannot see when you are telling them to pay ransom. Now, come with me." I was already in pain, but I told myself to think. The dead cop would not come back to life, and I didn't shoot him. But if I made a mistake, I'd find myself as dead as he was. Pull it together. Pull it together. Pull it together. We stood behind a small house surrounded by forest, and I knew right away from my Google Map searches that we were in Ulysses Grant State Park, the only forested area within 100 miles of Baxter. I also knew there was a lake in the small park, though it wasn't in sight, and horse trails that wandered through the woods. "What are you thinking? How you can escape? Where you can go?" I wasn't ready for the questions, but they settled me nonetheless. These two people, I told myself, don't know anything about me outside of the fact that I have rich parents. Let's keep it that way. I lowered my eyes and said, "I'm thinking about the policeman. I feel like it's my fault that—" "You are wrong. It's my fault. Me alone. You were not supposed to wake up when you did. I am taking full responsibility. You did nothing." Shortly before my 8th birthday, Father told me that I required a pet. Caring for a pet, he insisted over my protests, will teach you something about obligation. This is a lesson you desperately need. He'd leaned in closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Because that's what your life will be about, my daughter. Obligation in all its many forms." Father isn't big on democracy, the rule of the people. We live in a republic, he insists, not a democracy. Bottom line, I would receive the pet, like it or not, and be expected to care for it, the only consolation that I could select the species. I chose a lizard. Father cannot accept direct confrontation from anyone besides his brother, who regularly calls him to the carpet. Yet, oddly, he appreciates being outmaneuvered by his daughter. By choosing a lizard, an animal that required no emotional investment and very little care, I'd avoided the most onerous aspects of Father's imposed obligations. 2 weeks later, I received a gold dust gecko, a terrarium, and a packet of gecko food. I think I began to dislike my never-named gecko when I read a little pamphlet on gecko diet. Mashed fruit mixed with ground insects, supplemented by the occasional live cricket. I found the lizard beautiful, I'm willing to admit that much. Its near-luminescent scales were lime green and dusted with gold specks. Its legs and feet were blue-gray, as was its nose and brow. Splotches of red began at mid-back and ran to the tip of its pointed tail, while its body was smooth and sleek, a little rocket that moved in quick, sharp jerks. As long as I thought of my lizard as some sort of exotic jewel, I remained willing to possess it. But then one day, for reasons unknown, I decided to closely examine the creature for the first time. Perhaps I'd smoked one joint too many. As it happened, there was little to examine. The reptile's face betrayed nothing, even when I positioned my own face a few inches away. I wanted a look inside. I wanted to know what makes a reptile tick, but its black eyes were totally dead. They were the indifferent eyes of a light-detecting machine. Looking into them, I found only my reflection. A few days later, I gave my gecko to the little ghoul I call a brother, and love dearly. The woman, my kidnapper, had eyes that reminded me of that gecko as I stood beside her, my arms folded across my chest, the cool air raising goosebumps on my forearms and the back of my neck. The contrast between her soothing voice and those dead eyes shook me. This woman had just killed a man, but she appeared as unmoved as my gecko after consuming a cricket. The judgment calmed me still further, and my tone, when I spoke, was convincingly submissive. "Please don't hurt me any more." "Any more?" I touched my scalp and winced, then repeated, "Please." Just what she wanted to hear. I knew that even as the words left my mouth. Whoever this woman saw, it was not me. Without a word, she took me by the arm and led me toward the small house. The man with us, Quentin, opened the front door with a key, then stood off to the side. The woman urged me forward, and we stepped inside, at which point I expected someone to flick on the lights. Instead, the woman used a tiny flashlight with a narrow beam to guide us across a large room to a second door. When she opened it, I found myself looking at a set of wooden stairs descending into a basement. I had no choice, and I knew it. That didn't prevent me from imagining rats dashing across a dirt floor, spiderwebs clinging to crumbling brick walls, millipedes wriggling between soiled sheets. But the flashlight's beam instead revealed a small, tidy room with a wooden floor, a table, and a sturdy chair made of wood. A lantern rested on the table, and the woman walked directly to it after closing the door behind her. She pressed a switch on the side, and the lantern produced a light so intense I involuntarily closed my eyes. "You see?" the woman said. "Home sweet home." My eyes, when I opened them, were instantly drawn to the junk food on the table, to the chips, the popcorn, and the beef jerky. I wouldn't starve to death. I'd merely be poisoned. Looking to me like soldiers at attention, bottles of water lined the table's far edge, while a large box of AA batteries and a neat stack of 8 paperback novels rested close to a pile of blank pages. The pages were topped by colored pencils tied with a rubber band, ready for playtime. "What happens next?" I ask. "You relax here. Later, you will communicate with your parents. Please to understand, I have no reason to hurt you if you cooperate. This we do here is about money, yes? We get money and you go back to parents." Yeah, now that I've seen her face and the face of her silent partner who currently blocked the door, arms folded across his chest. The man was trying his best to play the tough guy, the muscle, but he'd watched too many gangster films. He was the proverbial weak link, appearing for all his bulk more boy than man. "What's your name?" My goal was to establish some measure of independence, but I made the mistake of looking into those insect eyes, and I stumbled through the last word. "Call me Tasha. And for now, goodbye." "Wait, can I ask—" I don't finish the sentence, my goal only to appear submissive. "I won't be any trouble. Don't harm me." "For this time, no questions. Later, we speak." Then she was gone, the door closing behind her with a thud solid enough to convince me that I'd never break it down. It could be worse. According to my brother, kidnapped victims have been confined to coffins that later held their bodies. Here the room was warm, and there was food and water, and it appeared a bit of time as well. The lantern was extremely bright, and I could see into every corner of the room as I made a slow, deliberate survey. First, sheets and a blanket covering a mattress. Then the windows, or what used to be windows. I found 3, set high up on the wall, perhaps 8 or 10 inches from the ceiling. The windows were protected by plywood panels that appeared to be new. The walls were sheetrock and nailed into studs, with no effort having been made to conceal the nail heads. Sheetrock is nothing more than compressed gypsum sandwiched between layers of thick paper. If I managed to gouge my way through an individual panel, what would I discover on the far side? Dirt or a cinder block foundation? I spent the next few minutes crisscrossing the room, looking for anything I could employ, either to escape or as a weapon. I wasn't expecting much, the floor was spotless, but I found a loose nail in one of the drywall panels. I worked at it for a minute, the nail head digging into my fingertips, until it came free. Slightly blunted at the point, the 3-inch nail was still sharp enough to cut through the paper covering the sheetrock panels, or chip at the mortar between the bricks. A thought leaped into my pitifully obsessed brain, cutting through the tunnel vision that had seized me ever since awakening in the trunk of that car. Tasha's not stupid, and not foolish enough to discount the serious nature of her crime. If caught, she will surely pass the rest of her life in a cage. Leave me on my own? That would be really stupid. I made a friend, one who doesn't dislike me, as difficult to swallow as that may seem, last summer at the Bradford Group work site. His name is Paolo Yoma, director of site security for the firm. According to Paolo, surveillance and security are now inextricably joined, a Gordian knot that only a fool would sever. I repeated to myself, Tasha's not stupid. Time to think things out. I sat in the wooden chair at the table, opened a bag of barbecue-flavored potato chips, unscrewed the cap on a bottle of water. As I brought the bottle to my mouth, another thought I might have thought long before jumped into my brain, mocking me. Of course there's bottled water in the room. Bottled water is an absolute necessity because there's no running water. No running water, no sink, no toilet. No. What there is, tucked beneath the table, is a bucket. A fucking bucket. Chapter 3. Delia. Mostly when you crash through the door, dope addicts are on the nod, or sick from cold turkey withdrawal. They're rational, too. Rational enough to get their asses on the floor. Rational enough to recognize overwhelming force when it's pointing a gun in their direction. Not the tweakers, though. Methamphetamine highs begin gently enough. Slammers become instantly social, talking ceaselessly, compulsively. Give them coloring books and crayons, and they can amuse themselves for hours on end, or at least until they start to come down. I've interrogated dozens of meth addicts. The high, they tell me, is utterly euphoric. The come down is a nightmare you'll do anything to avoid. Like injecting another dose into your arm, then another, and another, and another. You don't sleep, not with your heart rate above 150 beats a minute, not with every neuron flashing on and off like the lights on a berserk Christmas tree. No, you stay awake for days, becoming more and more paranoid as the hours pass, and your reaction when I finally show up is driven by what amounts to a full-blown psychosis. My name is Delia Mariola. As captain, I'm the highest-ranking officer on the Baxter Police Department. I was supposed to be chief of police. The job was offered 2 months ago, but then Chief Black learned that he could boost his pension by 40% if he hung on for another 8 months. So sorry. My mission, on the other hand, hasn't changed. I'm supposed to make Baxter safe for the Nissan car company. That means cleaning up a drug problem so deeply entrenched it might be included on the city's seal. Maybe a syringe flanked by corn stalks. I should have been disappointed. My son Danny thinks I was cheated. But there was a positive angle I couldn't ignore. As chief, my duties would be strictly
Sample complete. Ready to continue?